Hello, everyone, and welcome. We're going to go ahead and begin the webinar shortly. So just sit tight while we wait for others to join the webinar. Okay, so I think we'll go ahead and start. Hello, everyone. My name is Paulo Kesperdit with the City of West Hollywood, and welcome to the fourth installment of the West Hollywood COVID-19 webinar series. This webinar will focus on rethinking and pivoting your business model during COVID-19. The City of West Hollywood has issued an emergency executive order aimed at businesses and workers and has produced a toolkit for businesses affected by the coronavirus crisis. Information is available by going to the city's website at www.weho.org/coronavirus, where there are links to small business resources. For our agenda today, we'll go over a little bit of introductions, and then Tara, the city's business development analyst, will go through some data on our current business climate and the city's effort to assist businesses during this time. Then Dimple and Tom will go over their resources for retooling your business into the e-commerce environment. And then finally, we'll answer some questions. Before we begin today's session, I would like to go over a few housekeeping. Today's session is being recorded, and a copy of the webinar will be available after the presentation. Please use the questions tab located on the right-hand side of your screen to ask any questions regarding this presentation. The polls tab is also located on the right-hand side of the screen. Use this tab to answer our polls and see results in real time. Currently, there is one poll in there, so feel free to go ahead and fill out the poll when you get a chance. Once again, to find out more information about the city's coronavirus efforts, please visit our website at www.weho.org/coronavirus. And with that, I'll shift it over to Tara to talk about the city's efforts.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the webinar. As Paulo mentioned, we're just going to briefly go over what the city has done, and I've just only taken the highlights of the efforts that the city manager and our city council has taken at this moment. And the real focus has been to streamline regulations to support existing and new businesses in West Hollywood. And to start with, we've waived the business tax certificate fee associated with opening an e-commerce operation for existing brick and mortar retail stores. Therefore, if you are already operating in West Hollywood, you are able to start an e-commerce operation without going through any city process at this point. Additional things that the city and the state have done to allow for a sort of ease of transaction during this time of crisis is to allow for off-site alcohol sales for restaurants offering to-go meals. And although we don't think of meals as an e-commerce operation, it certainly falls in that category during this time. We've relaxed the parking standards and traffic plans for restaurants to provide easier access for customers. And there's more information coming out this week about easier ways for businesses to receive parking signs that allow for some flexibility on their outdoor parking meters. More information will be posted on our website towards the end of this week regarding that. We also are allowing temporary banners for businesses where the signs feature access to food, and that is we've waived all sort of location and size regulations that are included in our current zoning code. And then finally, we've allowed our restaurants to have a temporary change of use from a restaurant to a grocery store or market. There are some regulations around that, and I encourage you, if you're interested in shifting your restaurant's operations to a grocery store or market, that you visit our city's website for further details. So you can always reach out to me as well. Next slide, please. So just briefly, I learned this recently, and I thought it was super interesting, and I would like to share with everybody on the webinar today. It's that about 1/3 of all our e-commerce falls into 4 categories, and the first is kind of intuitive. We all kind of shop for clothing online regularly. And the second would be electronics, and now our household goods items have been increasingly trending during this crisis time, and I figured that's because a lot of people are spending time at home. They want to make their space a little bit nicer if they have the means to do that. And then fourth and final category is the food and drink category. So folks are using the internet to purchase food and drink now more than ever, and I think that trend is likely going to stay with us from here into the near future. Next slide, please. And I just want to preface the whole conversation that Dimple and Tom are going to walk us through with some behavioral changes that are consumer behavioral changes that are expected to last from this COVID-19 experience that we're all going through. And some of them are intuitive, and then some of them are kind of a little bit more data-based. So the first would be the contact avoidance. We're seeing this in stores, brick and mortar stores right now. We're also seeing a shift to e-commerce, so that reflects in both categories. Protecting personal space, again, that's a contact avoidance strategy. It's just to maintain your own personal space when you are out and about. We're also seeing a shift towards localized consumption, and I think that is around this messaging that we're seeing a lot in the marketplace of supporting local, shopping local, and that's going to be continued strategy for a consumption behavior. Folks may or may not have discretionary spending in the upcoming months to year regarding the amount of disposable income they may have. So the discretionary spending that they do have will be chosen and effective in a way that is up to the consumer to spend. We will be likely staying in a virtual space for the near future, and we also see that confidence-based loyalty. So if you have consumers that are have been past clients of yours, then they likely will continue that trend of purchasing from you. And again, the seventh and final behavioral change that I'd like to note is this globally influenced decision making. So we are now at this precipice of, we have so much information provided to us through the internet, and many consumers are making choices based on this access to information, and that is obviously influenced by everyone that is in the marketplace globally. So if we again, I know this is sort of a saying that's been said many times before now, but we're thinking locally, but acting locally, thinking globally, and that's going to be continued consumer pattern into the near future. And with that, I'm going to shift into our presentation for today, presented by our colleagues Dimple Thacker and Thomas Ciccarelli. I think I've said those names correctly. I'll transition over to Dimple now, and she'll get started with the presentation.
Perfect. Thank you guys for the introductions. Thank you for inviting us during this time. I think it's never been more important to do so. I actually have been a virtual business since day one. So it's kind of interesting that this is happening right now because operational wise, we've experienced minimal disruption. And I think there's something to be said about that because I don't think this is something we should just take seriously now, but I think it's something we should, if you're new to this, it's something you should adapt and bring into your business model and keep it for a long-term reason, because you never know when something or like this could happen again, or something unrelated like this could happen again, but cause the same kind of effects to business. Can everyone still hear and see me okay? Just making sure. Yes? Okay, cool. So just to recap, this webinar is about rethinking and pivoting your business model. And it is a beginner's guide to e-commerce. So jumping right into it, a little bit more about my background. I've been in the tech space and marketing space for a little over 12 years now. Actually built one of my first websites at the age of 15 years old. So this has been something that's been in my life, or part of my life, for a very long time. And so again, I've been virtual for a long time, so a lot of this is very comfortable for me. I'm okay with, having operations that work this way. And so I think this is going to be a really great way for those of you who haven't done it to become more keen on it. Going to the next slide, I'm going to go ahead and let Tom jump in and introduce himself and tell us a little bit about himself and his background. Is Tom still with us?
I think Tom might have jumped off. Give me 1 second. I'll get him back in here.
No worries.
Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. My screen went completely blank. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. My name is Tom Ciccarelli. I am a CEO and founder of Giant Titan. I've been doing web development for about 13 years now, and I've been a computer geek my whole life. Before it was cool. I've built on many different e-commerce platforms, from Shopify, Magento, WooCommerce, and so forth. So I have a pretty good experience with building on such platforms as those. And I also have done a lot with fulfillment, printing on demand, and working with various businesses to help get them online as well. And I think with some of the things that we're going to go over today, we might be able to help certain businesses get their products online and hopefully make that process easy for them as well. You're muted, Dimple.
The chat room that some people are having like a pixelated screen. I'm having that as well. So I'm going to actually stop the screen share and restart it to see if that fixes the problem. For 1 second.
Yeah, that happened to me when we went live. It actually, the whole screen went blank.
Okay.
So that's why I had to sign off and get back on.
All right, let me see here. So far, it's still doing it for me. Yeah, it's still doing it, but everyone's still seeing it. I think we might have to do a quick refresh. What do you guys think about doing that, just so everyone can see clearly?
You could go ahead and refresh your screen.
Okay, I'll be right back, guys.
And in the meantime, I added another poll on the polls tab. It asks, what type of retailer are you, if you're a retailer? And kind of a little interactive portion to the webinar. Just looking at some early data poll results here, it looks like 80% of the people on the call have experience with e-commerce platforms, which is a good thing.
All right, I am back. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. And the screen is back to normal. Great. I'm going to continue on. Hopefully some of you will rejoin us after we started as well. All right, so on to the next slide. So here's the outline for today's webinar on the basics of e-commerce. We're going to go over 3 overall areas, which are how should brands adapt given the unprecedented changes by switching to e-commerce, choosing and managing an e-commerce platform for your business, and then last but not least, marketing your e-commerce business. And as I'm going through this webinar, Tom and I are going through this webinar, we're going to go over the basics here. And so what you want to do is basically take notes, create a list of things to Google and to research further, because we won't be able to go through every single thing here. We will do a Q&A at the end. And you will walk away from this webinar sort of empowered, like knowing, okay, I kind of have a plan for what my next step should be should I want to start an e-commerce platform for my business. So we're going to jump right into it. Four ways that we've outlined that ways your business can adapt. So number 1, it's choose the right platform or platforms. It could be plural, so it could be a multi-channel sales approach, and we'll talk a little bit about that in the upcoming slides. So basically what we're trying to say about that is there's no one perfect place to sell your products online. So keep that in mind as you're thinking about e-commerce. Number 2, know what you'll need to launch. So that includes products, shipping, payment gateways, analytics, and everything in between. And later in the presentation, we'll have checklists for you. Number 3, learn how to manage and maintain. So managing orders, the customer service, workflows. Workflows has a lot to do with automation so that you're not doing too much of the manual labor when it comes to the day-to-day management of your e-commerce store. And last but not least, have a comprehensive marketing plan. Comprehensive meanings have something that includes email marketing, social media, Google Ads, SEO, and SEM. SEO stands for search engine optimization, and SEM stands for search engine marketing. And we'll talk about those later as well. Tom, did you want to add anything in this? Or give me a thumbs up if I should keep moving on?
I think you're good. Keep moving on.
Good. So let's get right into number 1, which is choose the right platform or platforms. There are many, many different kinds of platforms. And what you'll see on this slide here is I have the name of the platform on the top, a quick description of what the platform specializes in. And in the black on the bottom is the category it typically falls into, the type of e-commerce platform. So like I said, there are subcategories, there are other categories. But for these, I've covered 3 online marketplaces and I've covered 1 hosted store. And the reason why I chose these is because they happen to be the ones that are most popularly talked about. So let's start with Amazon, which again is an online marketplace. Amazon is great for name brand products, books, products with a barcode. So that's what, if you have products that fall into these categories, you might want to look there first and do some more research there first. Then we have eBay. eBay is great for selling all kinds of random things that are new and old. What makes it kind of unique is the fact that you can sell old stuff. So an example is someone selling an old piece of electronic equipment because there are people out there who are looking for replacement parts on something. And so you can actually get away with selling something that's old, whereas I think in other e-commerce spaces, it might come off a bit unusual. Then we have Etsy, which is perfect for handcrafted DIY and art products. And so I've used this personally, and that's exactly what I go there for. If there's like a cool or unusual piece of artwork I'm looking for my home, I'll go on Etsy. If I'm looking for party favors for a specific theme, I'll go on Etsy. So this is another type of online marketplace with a specific type of niche. And Shopify, this is the one that we're covering right now. That's actually a hosted store. So it allows you to build a customized store with themes and apps. And we actually do have a slide. While we can't go over all of these specifically, we do have a couple of slides going into a couple of these e-commerce platforms in depth. Okay, great. So here are some of the other types of platforms that weren't covered on the previous slide, other places where you can sell online. So one that's not talked about often, but should be every now and then, is crowdfunding. And the reason for that is because, let's say you want to go into the e-commerce space, but you don't actually have the product, but you have the concept of the product and you need some funding for that product. So there are ways on websites like Kickstarter or Indiegogo where you can launch a crowdfunding campaign for a product that may become a part of an e-commerce strategy later. Or that it's just a one and done thing. You use the crowdfunding platform to raise the funds, create the product, send the product out, and then it's done. So keep that in mind in case you are in that position where you don't have the actual product, but you have an idea or a concept and you want the power of crowdfunding to come in and help you, sell that product and get it out there. One product pages. This is most popularly used with authors. Let's say you're releasing a book and that's all you ever plan to do. You may not need a full e-commerce solution. What you might need is a one product page where you can just promote your book, have a simple add to cart, buy and checkout process, and then that's all you need to do. And then there's the self-hosted online stores. This is where Tom's going to jump in a little bit and talk to you about it, because this is where you get fully customized, you get fully in control of everything, end-to-end, soup to nuts, from the security to the hosting to the servers and everything else. So I'm going to go ahead and mute and let Tom talk a little bit more about what's involved in self-hosted online stores.
Thanks, Dibble. Self-hosting stores is basically you control every aspect of the store. So you would deal with the security of the store, which is basically dealing with PCI compliance and payment processing, which also means that you have to basically take steps to make sure that your customers' data is always secure. This usually requires someone on your staff to be a full-time developer and to monitor the security of your site and the server that it's hosted on currently. Another thing you can do, self-hosted stores are great if you, let's just say, want a really unique and customized experience for your customers. If you want them to build a product from beginning to end, you can pretty much create that whole experience for your customers, which is great. But like I said earlier, when you're dealing with PCI compliance, that can be an issue. So these self-hosted stores tend to be a little bit more expensive to maintain, and they do require a lot more knowledge to use them. They're not as easy as a Shopify or potentially some of the other sites out there to use on a daily basis, but they allow you to, they give you more liberties in their functionalities.
Thank you. I'm going to jump into the next slide. Okay, so here's where we get into a little bit deeper into one of the online marketplace options. And I chose Amazon because it's one of the most popular online marketplaces. These are, I'm basically outlining pros and cons, but notice I didn't actually say which one of these bullet points are pros or cons, because it varies for every business. What may be a pro for your business may be a con for another, because of the type of business model that you have or product marketing strategy that you have. So keep that in mind as I go through these bullet points. So with Amazon, one thing that's nice or not nice is that it offers fulfillment services. And Fulfillment by Amazon, which is also often abbreviated as FBA, it's a service provided by Amazon that provides storage, packaging, and shipping assistance to sellers. The program allows sellers to ship their merchandise to an Amazon fulfillment center where items are stored in warehouses until they are sold. This sounds pretty great for someone who just doesn't like the shipping and the inventory management part of what they're doing. So this is a great way to kind of offload that and have Amazon handle it. It's not a bad idea because Amazon is a leader in fulfillment processes. So it's a good thing to think about when you're getting started on Amazon. It's not something you have to do right away. It's something you can ease into. You can ship yourself. But again, even within these bullet points, there are pros and cons to consider. One con is that there have been claims, and actually I do think they're true, where fulfillment centers are having problems with security. So for example, if you are a seller and you send product there to be held onto it in the warehouse, people are sometimes taking that product and replacing it with knockoff products, or that product is just disappearing, and then you're suddenly seeing it appear in other marketplaces where someone else who got a hold of that product is now selling it for another price. And so that can be very frustrating because there's costs that you lose there and product that you lose. So keep that in mind when you're looking at the FBA service from Amazon, that there's pros and cons even within that. Tom, do you want to jump in and talk about anything that you may know about FBA? Because I know that's something we talked about earlier.
Yeah, so Amazon, it's a great service, it's a great platform, but it's a great platform and service for their customers. For their vendors, they can be a little bit tough. I've dealt with a lot of friends and colleagues that have used Amazon, and you could do a lot in terms of sales, but the problem is you are pretty much at the discretion of Amazon. So if you sell a t-shirt that you manufacture, and let's just say a company goes and says, that's our copyright, that's our brand, they can file a claim with Amazon and have your store taken down almost immediately. So let's just say, you're selling on Amazon, you're bringing in, X amount of dollars a year, and you're hiring staff, and you're dealing with logistics, and you're scaling based on the demand. And then one day you get an email saying, hey, your store's been shut down because of DCMA. What happens is basically you have to fight Amazon to get your store back online. The problem with that is during that time, that could take anywhere from 3 to 6 months. So what do you do with your employees during that time? And that's a problem that I've had a lot of friends I know deal with, where they built up a whole online store and it was taken away from them pretty immediately. And by the time they got it back, it was already over. So I think that's one thing to keep in mind when you're working with a platform such as, an online marketplace, that you are at their discretion and they can remove you off their site at any time. A few other things to be concerned about are there's a lot of people on Amazon that hijack listings. So let's just say you sell a product for X amount of dollars. Someone could go in and sell that same exact product for 1 cent less, and they will be able to take your buy button. So that is one thing to be careful about with Amazon. And a few other things that for vendors that I've noticed with dealing with Amazon is Amazon is all about their customers. So the effect of that is, as a vendor, if you will have a lot of times where products are basically stated that they never arrived and things like that. So you have to take those costs into consideration when pricing out for Amazon. You're also dealing with fulfillment fees. You're dealing with loss of product. And when you think about all those items, is it really cost effective to put your product on Amazon, and will the margins be just as good than if you just had it on your own site? And another thing to take in consideration too is with Amazon, you don't own the customers, Amazon does. So when you're coming out with new products or coming out with new things, you can't necessarily contact those people. It's just basically something that Amazon owns. And they are actually, a lot of people used to put little mailers in with the products that they ship through Amazon. And Amazon, I believe, has stopped that moving forward. And if you get caught doing it, I believe they will disable your vendor account. So that's something also to consider moving forward as well, if you decide to go with an online marketplace such as Amazon.
Thank you. The perfect segue into the last couple of bullet points on Amazon. Just like Tom said, we'll call that limited control. So while selling on Amazon is straightforward, there are limited options to stand out. The data privacy is questionable. it favors its buyers, and policies are arguably strict and unclear. Now, just so it doesn't sound like we're poo-pooing all over Amazon, I will say that sometimes maybe Amazon, I guess what I'm trying to say is you shouldn't put all your eggs in one basket maybe. So maybe you use Amazon and the power that it has and the traffic that it has to maybe list a few items and then use that as a way to funnel traffic back to your main site. So now someone has discovered your product, they like your product, maybe they'll Google your product and discover your e-commerce site. And on that e-commerce site, what you can do is offer discounts, capture email addresses, and find ways to funnel that traffic back to you so that you can have more of the control back.
No, and sorry about that. One thing I want to say too is before you said that you would need a barcode to sell on Amazon. Amazon does actually offer if you have a trademark on your product, on your name, and those products are specific for your trademark, you could actually get an exemption with Amazon, so you don't need a barcode to sell on Amazon. They call it, I believe, an AIN number, and you can actually contact them, and they will give you a list of numbers you can use moving forward on your products. So that's just something I wanted to add in there from earlier.
So thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem.
Everyone has the info that they need. And then the last slide on Amazon are the fees. And there are all kinds of fees. And you can actually go on the Amazon online marketplace website and go into the documentation. They'll break down these fees for you even further. But what you should think about are, depending on your setup, plan to pay for subscription fees, per item fees, closing fees, high volume listing fees, and refund administration fees and more. So again, you're eating the cost for a lot of these things, especially when you're thinking about refunds. That is something you have to factor in when you're thinking about profit margins and whether investing too much in Amazon is worth it for you as a seller. So now let's get into a hosted solution. We are going to talk a little bit more about Shopify, and it's a good one to talk about because Shopify is one of the top hosted platforms out there that everyone likes to use. And this is a place where Tom's really going to shine because this is what he does all day long is Shopify, Shopify, Shopify. And so the first thing that you should know about Shopify is that it's fully hosted. So unlike when we talked about the self-hosted sites, this is fully hosted. So it's kind of the opposite where the server maintenance, the updates and the security is handled for you, among other things. So that kind of eases your day-to-day right there because it's not something you have to think about too much because Shopify does it for you. And yes, there is an app for that. And what we mean by that is Shopify has its own app store. It includes free and paid tools so that you can cross-post products. So cross-posting means you're listing a product on your Shopify web store, but you're also able to list those products on other platforms like Amazon, for example. So they kind of make it all a little bit turnkey and easy for you. You can also integrate social media. You can manage your database. And what's also nice about Shopify is that it accepts hundreds of payment processors worldwide. What you'll find out with payment processing is that some payment processing works with certain zip codes and countries while others don't. So you're gonna have to do your research if you do want to become like a global seller. What payment processors will you need in order to be a store that can serve everyone and everywhere? And then the other thing, there's always fees with all of these. The basic plan on Shopify covers minimal features. So as you scale and grow, you're gonna want to plan to prepare to pay for fees for advanced features to run your store. According to Tom, when him and I spoke earlier, it looks like the basic package has been changed a bit, so it includes a little bit more, but you should still keep in mind that as you scale, you're going to have to look into other fees to keep your e-commerce store full service and full featured. And then advanced customization is also included with Shopify. It's not a mandatory thing. You can use one of their turnkey templates. But if you do want to get a little bit advanced with your look and feel of the store, you can do that. But Shopify has their own PHP language, which is a web programming language called Liquid. And so there's a bit of a learning curve there if it's something that you even want to take on. But typically it does require the assistance of a professional developer, someone like Tom. So I'm going to hand it off to Tom to talk a little bit more about Shopify, because he has got all the wisdom there when it comes to.
I know a little bit about Shopify. So Shopify to me is one of the best hosted solutions I've used in current years. I've used Magento Go, Volusion, Big Cartel, Big Commerce. You know, I've used them all. And the thing I like about Shopify is it gives you some access, and that access that it gives you are things that I typically would need to use. Such as being able to, you know, create a custom user experience and be able to, you know, add certain custom options for products and things like that. The thing that, you know, really with Shopify, the thing that you have to be careful about is that it is a closed ecosystem. So the checkout page is going to be, you're allowed to have light customization on the checkout page. And the options of the information you can take from your customers from the checkout page is going to be the information that Shopify allows you to grab. So if you want maybe certain, like the birth date of your users or anything like that, you're going to have to figure out a unique approach to be able to gather that data, such as a mailing list sign up or something like that. So there are limitations to Shopify, but the thing I love about it is it's really turnkey. If you just want to set up a basic site and get online, it's really easy and intuitive. Their customer support is A+. I was just dealing with them today for about 3 hours. And since then, I've received 3 emails from their team checking on the status of it. That's what you're really paying for, I think, with Shopify is the customer support and the use of their platform. When you start building your online store and you start seeing a massive amount of traffic, one thing to understand is, dealing with page load times. And I think that's where Shopify, it's really beneficial because, they say that every second your page takes to load, you're losing like 10% of your online sales. I don't know how true that is, but that's what they say. And I think that's one thing that really makes Shopify shine is, it has a really good uptime, which means the site is usually up 99.9% of the time. It loads really quick when your customers go to the site. Checkout is really easy, and you getting products on there is really easy as well. And that's what I really enjoy about Shopify over the other platforms that I've used in the past. And they have an app store that's available. Granted, it's like it's not the best app store in the world. There are some, every app store has its junk on there, but there are some really great intuitive programs and applications that you could install to maybe automate some processes with your business, such as offering discounts when people sign up, or basically just things that can make your life easier so you can focus on getting your products online and fulfilling customers' orders. Another great thing about Shopify is as you grow, you can upgrade your plan. And with that being said, every time you upgrade your plan, they offer you some new features. Some are more advanced accounting features, so you can keep track of certain products that are selling better than others, or what time of day people are purchasing, things like that, and or where your purchases are or where your customers are coming from. Another great option they give you is you can actually buy your shipping labels through Shopify, which is really nice because as your plan grows, that discount gets greater and greater, which basically benefits your margins from shipping online. So there's a lot of great benefits to Shopify that I really enjoy. And until someone invents something better, that's what I'm going to stick with for now.
And while you're speaking, Tom, there are a couple of questions from Richard Kraft that involve inventory. And so I thought, because we're on the topic right now of hosted platforms, this might be a good opportunity to answer a couple of those questions.
Yeah, sure. We currently have a brick and mortar only store with a local loyal following. We want to start selling online for in-store pickup and delivery mail order. We currently run our store on Microsoft RMS POS, and we are looking for hosted platforms like Shopify, Square, etc. Any thoughts on comparing platforms? I think it comes down to with Square, it's more of a really basic store. It allows you to get your products on there. I haven't necessarily used Square recently with their new online store capabilities. I've seen it really, in passing a few times, but I haven't really dug deep into it. If it's anything like their web builder is, it's really bare bones, and it allows you to get online and be able to sell. But it doesn't really give you the features, I believe, that Shopify would, or another platform. So I think that's something to keep in mind. If you have something that's unique, there might be some limitations with using Square versus Shopify. And I think that's something you could look at for yourself, as well as maybe do some demos with these various platforms and figure out what's working for you or what feels more comfortable for you as a user, and what kind of might be more intuitive to set up or to launch. That's something really you have to think about as your business, is how much are you willing to invest in creating getting your store online, and basically maybe if you're even testing to see if it's a viable option for your business as well. So I'm not opposing to using Square, but I would definitely look at the features they offer and see what would work best for you. You have another question as well, as we're also wondering about inventory management system between RMS and hosted platform. Integration between seems challenging. Any thoughts on the best way to run sales both online and in store to manage product inventory availability? Shopify, I know, does have a POS system that you can integrate with. They actually can, I believe you can do it with multiple locations as well, and you can set up inventory per location. So if let's just say location A has X amount of product, location B has X amount of product, you can actually pull that up within the app and see, if other stores have product available, and you can, direct users that way. And you could also use that for when orders come in to be able to know which location will be shipping out the product. So Shopify does have a POS system. I've used it in the past. It worked pretty well for us. I think it all comes down to, like I said, again, the functionality that you need for your business. And if you need something unique, there are other platforms out there, and I do believe a lot of them do integrate with Shopify now. Back when I first started a while ago, there wasn't too many that did, and I've noticed that there are more and more allowing that functionality to be there. So I would definitely, always check with companies, even if they say they do integrate. I would ask to see demos and make sure you get everything in writing, because usually they'll sell you on one thing and deliver you something else. So just make sure that when you are doing these demos, to make sure that they are having the features that you require as a business. But I would definitely check out Shopify POS, though. I really enjoy it, and it's a really nice system.
Thank you. Richard, if you're still with us, in the chat, I actually responded with a link that talks about Shopify's inventory management, and then a link about their POS features. So that's a good thing to review either while we're here or afterwards. So, all right. So moving along. Okay. So we've kind of talked about the different platforms. Now let's talk about checklists, knowing what you need to launch. We made one checklist for online marketplace selling, and then another checklist on the following slide will be for a hosted option. But you'll see that there's a lot of crossover and overlap there, except with the hosted option, you'll have a couple more things to do. So with the online marketplace selling, what you want to prepare for is your legal business name, tax IDs, business address, and contact information. You also want to plan your budget, overhead expenses, and think about your profit margins once you've reviewed all the different fees. You want to research and plan your return and shipping methods and policies, and see how they coincide with the marketplace that you're selling with. And then you also want to think about stellar product photos and descriptions. And think about your very own online shopping experience. Do you typically buy from the person that's just got a crappy cell phone photo and a 2-line description, or do you shop from the person that's got an actual product description and multiple photos of the product so you can see what it is that you're buying? I would go for the latter, only because it is online shopping. Nothing is are things that you can touch and feel. So having those descriptions and photographs are really helpful. You also want to think about your product strategy. What are you going to sell? You want to think about your pricing strategy. And then with pricing strategy, you actually want to do some competitor research. What are your competitors who are maybe selling the same products? What are they selling them for? What are their pricing strategies? That'll help inform you on where you want to start. And then you want to understand how to manage online reviews and customer feedback, because in these online marketplaces, that is a widely used feature and it's front and center. Once someone lands on your listing, it's the reviews and the feedback that people look to decide whether they want to buy from you and whether they want to buy that product. Anything you want to add about online marketplace, or thumbs up to move on? Sounds good. All right. So checklist for hosted stores. Again, overlap here, but there are a couple other things you want to think about. So same thing as before, but you want to think about more of a startup plan. You want to think again about budgets, overhead expenses, profit margins, the legal paperwork, your billing information, and you might even need some capital to begin, just because there's a little bit more of an investment when you go the hosted route. You also want a list of your sales channels if there's more than one. So again, we talked a little bit about this earlier, where you don't have to choose one. You could do a multi-channel selling approach where you throw in Amazon and you throw in a couple of these other places, and you try to find ways to funnel that back and bring awareness to your own e-commerce store. You also want to think about a name, a domain name, and branding, because when you do launch these stores, you do have the opportunity to logo, have colors for your brand, and create basically a real identity for yourself as a brand. So think about that as well. And then with the domain name, I'll also say, think about something that's easy, something that's catchy, something that's clever. Don't have a domain name that's like 5 words and 16 numbers, because people are not going to know how to get to you. So think about that as well. And then think about your payment gateways. We talked about this a little bit before, but this is the time when you're going through this checklist to really sit down and think about it and research all of your options. A sitemap and a list of site features. Sitemaps are typically blueprints for a website. So you want to think about, am I going to have an FAQ page? Am I going to have an About Us page? Am I going to have other pages outside of product listings? And what is that map of the site going to look like? Site features. Will you allow reviews to be posted on your site? Some e-commerce stores do and some don't. I recommend it because it does drive purchasing decisions. And then analytics. What are you going to have on the back end that informs your decisions when you're thinking about optimizing your site and improving it as you learn about what's happening on your site? Next, product strategy. Similar to before, but this time you're getting maybe a little bit more advanced here with your photography, your descriptions. You also want to think about the production of your products, the manufacturing of your products, drop ship, or print on demand. Production and manufacturing, people tend to know what those things are. Drop ship, a lot of people don't know. Sometimes what you can do is when you launch your e-commerce store, Shopify may connect you to another partner of theirs where you can find products to sell from other places. And so if you do that, where you're not creating your own product, but you're actually finding other places that sell products and warehouse and house these products, drop shipping is where the person simply places the order on your site, and then the drop shipping partner of yours basically sends it out and takes care of the other logistics beyond that. Now, print on demand is very similar to drop shipping, except it tends to relate more to like t-shirts and mugs and posters, where you create something that's a unique design, and then you work with an on-demand printer. So if I buy a t-shirt from your online store and you have an on-demand printer as a partner, they will print that shirt, they will ship it, they'll send it out. In some cases, they handle the returns and the customer service as well. So these are great things to Google and research more beyond this. And I know Tom's going to jump in and talk about it as well. So keep that in mind as you're thinking about your product strategy. So pricing strategy and competitive analysis, again, same like online marketplaces, you want to think about that. And then a plan for taxes, shipping, order management, customer support and feedback, return policies, and driving traffic to your store. And then last but not least, building workflows. This is where you can really optimize, you could really decrease the amount of manual labor you have to do to manage your store. And we actually do have a slide on that later. So we'll get into we'll get into some examples of what workflows can look like. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Tom. He's going to talk about this.
Yeah, so it looks like a lot because it is a lot. Setting up an online store there's a lot you have to take into consideration. There's a lot of planning and guesswork in terms of, how much you're willing to charge, how much, what pictures are going to look best. All these things you kind of have to figure out and kind of guess what your customer base will enjoy. So as for a domain, I actually dealt with this yesterday where a client had a 25-letter domain. And I said, one more letter and they're going to be putting in the whole alphabet to visit your website. So that's one thing that, you definitely have to keep in consideration with your domain. You want to make it very simple and concise. You want them to, you tell someone the domain and them not have to ask you, is there 2 T's or 1? Or, you want it to just be very legible and very easy for people to understand. In terms of payment gateways, there's a lot of options out there. Authorize.net, Shopify has Shop Pay now. They tend to all have the same fees. Some of them are a little less, a little bit more. If you're a non-for-profit, you actually get a discount with certain platforms. So if you do run a nonprofit, that's definitely something to take into consideration. You can ask them for a discounted rate, which is really nice. Basically, analytics are going to be your best friend in terms of your store. You want to keep track of all your data and see how customers are reacting and using your store, where you're seeing your biggest drop-offs. And by drop-offs, I mean at what page do customers tend to leave your store. Usually, we'll see that during the shipping portion of the checkout process. Amazon has tend to spoil a few people with free shipping, and I think that's something you have to consider when coming out with your product prices, is if you should include the shipping cost into your product price and offer free shipping, free ground shipping at the cart. That's something I tend to do a lot, and I've seen a lot of benefit from doing that to kind of alleviate that drop-off rate on the shipping page. Photography, descriptions, production, that is photography is something that you can do yourself. There are ways to do it really easily if you wanted to. You can buy light boxes on Amazon and be able to take photos that way. There are some other methods you can do, but that is something that you can do yourself if you wanted to, or you can hire a professional to do. Descriptions, some people say that descriptions don't matter. I personally think they do, especially when it comes to your product. Descriptions tell a story, and they educate, entertain, and do a lot for a customer. And I think descriptions are really, a really well description goes a really long way with selling a product. And it also helps really well with marketing and SEO for your product as well. In terms of production manufacturers, drop shipping, and printing on demand, one thing I'd like to note is printing on demand is you have to be really careful with the companies you use, because some of them have really bad turnaround times. Some of them, your customers might not get a product for 3 months. And that's one thing you have to keep in consideration. And when you're looking into printing on demand, researching that to see what the turnaround time is for those print on demand facilities. With COVID-19 going on right now, a lot of print on demand is currently having trouble, and there are a lot of delays. So that's something to also take into consideration as well when setting up your online store. And also if drop shipping, a lot of companies use Alibaba and things like that to drop ship. So since a lot of those products majority come from China, they're dealing a lot with custom and importing issues. So that's one thing to think about as well if you plan on doing drop shipping. Pricing strategy and competitive analysis. You always have to kind of keep an eye on your competitors, but I think in terms of what your product is and what you are giving your customer also needs to be taken into consideration. When you're sending products, you want to make sure that it's a really great experience for the customer. You want to include a lot of add-ons, inserts, things like that, stickers. Those always help. So I think, it is good to be competitive, but if you're shipping boxes that people open up, brings them a lot of joy and happiness, it's worth it to spend an extra few dollars to do that. So I would definitely keep that into consideration. Taxing, shipping, order management, customer support, that right there is probably a whole seminar within itself. But I think one thing I'd like to touch on is customer support is the #1 priority when doing an online store. Customers will make or break your online store quicker than you can get it up. And with Instagram, Facebook comments, all these different things, you need to make sure that you're on top of all those things. And there's a lot of tools out there to help you keep on track and keep in communication constantly with your customers. And that's something I cannot talk about more on. What you should focus on is your customers. There's some software that I use called Zendesk, which I love. It's great for managing customers. The one thing I would suggest not doing is email, because with email, you, just like everyone else, emails tend to get lost, and you wake up and there's 100 emails in your inbox. It's hard to get through to each one of them. So I think with a ticketing system like Zendesk, it helps you manage and organize your customers, and it also gives you some features that allow you to maybe set up macros, which can maybe auto response to certain things. If because usually when you're running an online store, you will get a lot of questions that are similar. So these macros will allow you to alleviate some of that time by having auto submitting a response in the meantime. So those are some good things you can do to automate and save time for yourself, and you're helping out your customers. And that kind of fits into building workflows for your business. You can do a lot of things to alleviate some of that time, so you can focus more on developing new products or other problems that we face in this industry. So I think anything with automation is always great to implement, and to give yourself more time to focus on more important tasks that could not be automated.
Thanks, Tom. All good points to kind of build on the bullet points that we just mentioned. And then we're going to get into a couple of these checklist items here so that you have just a more detailed idea of what to do. Perfect segue, Tom. The customer service. I chose this one to talk about a little bit more out of all the bullet points, because I agree with Tom. I think it's the most important thing you could do once you're up and running. And so things that you want to think about with customer service is multi-channel support, which means you want to provide support via email, phone, live chat, social media, SMS, which is text messaging, or do you want to have an FAQ on your site, which is frequently asked questions? So those are things to think about. You can have all of them or a combination of them, or even one of those things to start, and then you can add more things in as you scale. The other thing is response times. When it comes to responding to customers, speed is king or queen, but don't forget about quality over quantity. So this isn't about responding to as many people as fast as you can and just forgetting about it. It's about responding with care and really taking care of the customer. And then last but not least, consider the entire journey. And so create a remarkable experience and surprise and delight. So let's talk about the remarkable experience. I think that if you create a remarkable product and experience, the marketing almost does itself for you, because what you do is when you have a remarkable product and experience in e-commerce store, people will take that and start spreading the word about your online store. And there's nothing more powerful than the power of referral. So an example is, I'm looking for a mechanic. I can go on Yelp and look for one, or Tom can recommend one to me, and which one of those weigh more on me? Because I know Tom, I trust Tom. He picks out great things, and or I could trust a random Yelp listing, for example. So you want to create that power of referral for yourself, because it will reduce your marketing costs because of that. And then surprise and delight. This is one of my oh no, there's a typo there. I'm so sorry. Surprise does have an R in it before the P, guys. But surprise and delight is one of my favorite marketing tactics ever. I'll give you a couple of examples. Let me give you a generic example first. So let's say you're on an online store. This is back in the day before Amazon ruined shipping times for us. Back in the day, you buy something online, you know it's going to come within 3 to 5 days. So you're like, okay, I'm waiting for this product to arrive. But guess what? It actually comes the very next day. And you think that something magical happened at the UPS facility or FedEx facility, but it didn't. What happened is the retailer used surprise and delight to make you think that one thing was going to happen, but actually another more pleasant thing happened. And that tends to leave a really good feeling with the customer when it comes to thinking about your brand. Some specific examples, Suja, the juice company, they spent quite a bit of time early on looking for hashtags. So they would look for hashtags where people said hashtag bad day, hashtag stressed out. And they would find these people and just contact them through Instagram and say, hey, we want to help you out. We're going to send you some Suja juice to make you feel better, which is great. And then Chewy.com, online store for a lot of pet products. They actually took the photo of one of their customers. It was a photo of the customer's cat. And when that customer ordered a product from them, they actually commissioned an artist to draw, to create a piece of artwork around that cat, and they included it in the shipment. So that customer was pleasantly surprised when she got her shipment and saw, hey, the photo I posted on Facebook now turned into this commissioned piece of artwork. And again, it left her with a really great feeling about the product that's going above and beyond. So customer service, critical, important. Think about your strategies there, because it can be the difference between you and a competitor. So moving on. So this is where Tom again is going to shine. This is about workflows and automation. So examples of that: track customers who make frequent returns. We sometimes in the industry call this serial returners or wardrobing. Serial returners are people who just have really bad shopping habits. They buy things and they get it and they have that buyer's remorse because it was out of their budget, and then they're just returning it to you. And then you're eating those costs and the logistical costs that come with that. Wardrobing is when people buy clothes, for example, and they wear them once and then they return them. And again, you're put in a very difficult situation. So you can actually set up a workflow and some automation where if you're finding that a single customer is a frequent returner, you can actually do something about that. I know that Amazon will actually keep track of this stuff and ban that person. So there are steps that you can take, but it's an area you don't want to ever get into. But if you do, you want to be notified and you want to be able to handle it to protect your profit margins. This one's really important. Adding a new customer to an email database. This decreases a lot of the manual labor you have to do when it comes to data entry. So a purchase has been made and that person is automatically added to your email list. Sharing to social media. So whenever you list a new product, it can automatically be shared to social media platforms. Tracking and rewarding customers. So easily implementing loyalty and retention initiatives. This can actually tie in really well with the previous slide when you're thinking about customer service. Tom, is there anything that you want to add?
Yeah, one thing I would like to add is your email database is probably the most valuable part of your online store. When you start collecting customer emails, after a while, you'll notice that as that list grows, every time you send an email, the amount of income that comes from that list will grow. To give you an example, if you have, let's just say 15,000 people on your email list, and every time you send that email, you make $15,000 in profit, you know that each one of those people on your email is about worth $1. So you tend to start working on getting your email list as big as you can, because you know the bigger that list becomes and the more income you will bring every time you send out a blast. That being said, if you send that email blast every day, you're not going to make that money. That money will slowly decrease. So I think that's something you need to understand as well, as when you're email marketing to people, to your customers, you need to make sure that you do it at a pace that doesn't overwhelm them. And you're offering really unique things, and maybe including a blog or some information about your business, anything to really, catch them and not always be a hard sell. So that's one thing I would definitely keep in mind with email marketing. But you can automate, customers' email signups and things like that. And you could also entice them with maybe a discount for signing up the first time. So there are a lot of really cool ways to get them on your email list. And there's a huge benefit to having and maintaining an email list. One thing I would suggest is to always make sure that you stay with sending emails, because as you stop sending emails, the list tends to become more and more stale, and you lose the ability. You don't get as great results every time if you don't use that email list pretty frequently. People tend to change their emails, they change jobs, they change schools. So that's one thing to keep in mind with that email list is you want to stay pretty frequent with engaged with your customers on there.
Awesome, thank you. We are jumping into the last section here, which is having a comprehensive marketing plan. So we'll go over some of the elements of that. Number one, SEO. We talked about this very early on in the presentation, which stands for search engine optimization, which is when search engines rank your brand's product at the top of a search results or on top of a results page. And this is more of an organic thing. I'm sorry, it's actually all organic. So it ranks your brand search engine ranking. So this is something that Tom can talk about in a second, how you can do that with your online stores. And then Google AdWords is what I was just saying, which is this is a paid advertising method where Google.com will reach a targeted audience with ads at the top of a search results page. They both kind of go hand in hand, actually. But this would be like if someone is searching for dog leashes, if you are doing Google AdWords and you're doing them correctly, you could appear at the top of the search results. And that's important because Google is the #1 search engine in the world, and sometimes a place where people start when they're, starting their shopping experience. Next thing is email marketing. About this, build a list, create effective campaigns, and track your results. This is going to be a real big sales driver for you, because when you think about other types of marketing, this is one of the most direct ways to reach people on a regular basis, where if you post something on social media, they may or may not see it in the news feed. They may or may not see your advertisement, but most likely they will see an email from you. And if you get your frequency right on the emails and your subject lines right on the emails, where you can increase your click-through rates, this can be a great way to keep your store thriving. And one more slide, just to cover other types of marketing: social media marketing, get followers, create strategies, content, explore paid advertising opportunities, and track conversions. I have a slide on this later, specifically talking about the conversion part. PR and traditional, this is public relations. That's what PR stands for. You can release press releases, you can do guerrilla marketing, you can go offline and go where groups gather. Of course, not right now, but hopefully when things restore, those are some marketing strategies that you can tap into. And then last but not least, strategic partnerships. This could be influencer marketing, co-creating products. That's a great thing to do with an indirect competitor that has a lot of followers. So let's say you are a brand new store, but you know someone who owns a store that's well-established and well-known. You could co-create products and campaigns together. So it may not be a product, but it could be running contests and promotions, which is also under strategic partnerships as well. I know Tom's going to have a bit to say. I'm going to jump back a slide. He's going to have some stuff to say about SEO and Google AdWords. So I'll let him talk about that a little.
So SEO and Google AdWords is more of what my team does. So I'm not as I would say enlightened with with it as they are. They deal with it on a daily basis, as where I deal more with it on a monthly basis. SEO is basically the meta information that you will have on the pages of your website. This is the information that Google will look for to know how to sort your website on their platform. So when you're doing SEO, you want to make sure that the product and the keyword that you're using is used throughout the page. You want to make sure that the title, the description, and the few other areas on that page have that keyword that you want to show up for on Google. So that's one thing to keep in mind when you're setting up your product pages. You don't want to be too unique. You want to think about, if you were a customer looking for your product, what would they type into Google to find your product? And that's one thing that you should keep in mind when dealing with the writing and descriptions of all your products. Google AdWords is more of what my marketing team does. Basically, it allows you to put your products on Google, and you basically bid on the how much you're willing to spend to have your ad be shown. So that's one thing that you need to keep in mind. It is you are bidding on those positions, and depending on what industry or what products you are selling, those bid rates can change. But one thing to note, since COVID has happened, a lot of major companies and big businesses have turned off their marketing until this is over. So Google AdWords and a bunch of social media marketing, I'm sure Dimple could tell you this, the prices have dropped pretty significantly in terms of how much it costs you to market. We're seeing almost a third of the cost to market on Google AdWords right now, which is really significant, especially if you're a small business. It's allowing you to bid really low, get really great placements, and see really great returns for a fraction of what you normally have to pay. So that's definitely something to keep in mind that we've noticed in the last few weeks, especially if you're launching a new online store. It's a really great time to get out there and market yourself at a discounted rate.
Awesome point to mention. Yeah, so while other people are slowing down, this might be a time for you to turn up a bit. So great points there. Okay, so one slide to talk a little bit more specifically. Let me make sure this is actually, there it goes. There's a little bit of a lag. So we're going to talk about, from all the things we just listed in the marketing, we're going to talk about social media, just so we can dive a little bit deeper into one type of marketing that you can do. Social media is something I've personally been involved in for a very long time. I started in the very beginning when MySpace was a thing and Friendster was a thing. And aside from Trillion View, I have a sister company called Synergy Marketing, and this is what we do. We do social media, full service marketing. And so a lot of people don't know this, but social media is just not a place where you can get likes and awareness. There are actually ways where you can track sales. And that's more on the advanced side of social media. And so basically what happens is if you sign up to become an advertiser, let's say on Facebook, which is also connected to Instagram, they will give you what's called a pixel. And that pixel is like a snippet of code that you copy and paste onto your website, and they'll tell you exactly how to install it. And when you install that code and you activate it, when you run your Facebook ads and the Facebook ads link to your store, Facebook will be able to track through their dashboard from the time someone saw your ad, clicked on the ad, ended up on your store, and then saw an order confirmation page. So that order confirmation page, which is where a conversion tag will sit, will send a signal back to Facebook saying, hey, this sale came from Facebook. It didn't come from a radio ad or a flyer or some other digital marketing tactic. This came from our Facebook ad. And this is great because a lot of the other things we talked about, like email marketing, you want to start thinking about your ROI, which is return on investment. How much are you investing to build these things, market these things, advertise these things, and how much are you making in return? So if you're spending $25 a day advertising on Facebook, but you're making back $2,500 a day, you know what you need to do to keep your store successful. So social media is great, especially when you get into the advanced side of it. I strongly encourage you to do that because it does have a really good ROI, and the cost compared to other marketing is relatively inexpensive. And Tom's got this great thing going on right now, actually, with one of his clients. And maybe you can spend a couple of minutes talking about how successful Instagram has been for you.
Sorry, I thought I was muted. So basically, one thing that we've done since with everything going on with the pandemic, a lot of people are locked up in their homes. So one idea we had was to basically, we have a client that is selling plants online, and they haven't launched yet. They planned on launching during the height of the pandemic. So we came up with the idea to basically offer a glimpse of the nursery of where they're growing everything. And during this time, we actually allow Instagram people on Instagram Live to basically ask to purchase plants. It kind of started off as a little bit of just a way to get people to, see the nursery and kind of get out of their homes a little bit in their minds. And it tended to actually kept growing, and people enjoyed watching the nursery show so much that at the current rate, within 4 weeks of doing this nursery show live, my client is currently in the top 5% of Shopify stores in terms of sales, and they haven't even opened yet. So that's something really, to understand is marketing can really make your business grow and scale really quickly if done correctly. And I think that's something to really keep in mind. You hear all this negativity and all these things going on in the news, and how bad things are, but there's a lot of opportunity in all of this, and there's a lot of ways to grow your business and be unique and take a different approach. And I think that's something you should keep in mind is while everyone is not thinking of everything that's going on, there's a lot of room for growth and a lot of opportunity here as a business owner to really shine and be able to maybe get some new market share that you previously weren't able to get because of dealing with marketing budgets and things like that. So I think that's one thing to really take into account for and kind of take a grasp of with dealing with this. There are opportunities out there.
In case you missed it, just in case you missed it, he said he used Instagram Live to sell.
Oh, sorry.
I know, I'm just repeating it because it's pretty amazing. He used Instagram Live to sell plants for a store that hasn't even launched yet and already ended up in the top of Shopify stores. So, which was it 5% you said, or 15%?
Top 5% of Shopify stores.
So
and yeah, we're not even opened yet. So it's really interesting to see how quick it grew. And it kind of was just something fun that we thought of, and we pretty much turned it into like an Instagram version of QVC, which is really, it's really fun and unique, and it's really engaging with customers. They really enjoy it, and we answer a lot of questions they have about products. We kind of just have a good time on there. So I think that's really something, an idea that maybe some businesses can adapt in some way to really, maybe grab some new customers and have some fun along the way.
Awesome. Yes. Okay, so we are moving right along. So basically, to kind of wrap, you can kind of tell that e-commerce can be as simple or as complex as you want it to be. And you're going to get stuck. Even the best of us do, and the most experienced of us do. But because, like I said, very early on, every platform has a very robust help section. And they also have customer support. You can also Google it, and I'm not saying that in a condescending way at all. Actually, I would say topics like social media and topics like e-commerce are some of the most written about topics ever. And a lot of that information is free. So Googling it in this case, and Googling it with the critical eye, just making sure you're getting the good advice, is a good tip. And then you could see qualified experts, like Tom and myself. We've been doing this for a long time. Tom has been doing it for a very long time. And so, you could come to us as well, and we can help you and navigate you through this if you decide to get into it. I don't know if we'll have any questions, but we did put a slide in to do some Q&A. I think we answered most of the questions that were in there in the questions tab, but this is a good opportunity to ask any lingering questions that you may have.
Yeah, I think Dimple.
Yeah, we've included both her emails. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think both of you answered some really great questions during the webinar. I do think one final question for probably people who are watching this on replay is, how could they contact either of you for more information on how to get started with an e-commerce and get more of that one-on-one attention?
Yeah, so you can reach me at dimple@trillionview.com. I have the slide up right now, so you can screenshot it. And then I believe the slides will be available afterwards, so you can use the last slide as my digital business card for the moment. And then, Tom, if you want to give them the best way to reach you, I do have your information up as well.
Yep, my information is listed above. It's tom@gianttitan.com, or you can go to gttn.co. Or gianttitan.com, whatever's easier. And you could reach me at any of those addresses.
Perfect. Well, thank you both so much for taking time out of your busy schedules to share with the community a few tips and tricks and how to pivoting and retooling their business toolkit to an e-commerce platform. We really thank you for the time that you've dedicated to this. So thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you for having us.
To find out more information about the city's coronavirus effort, please visit us at www.weho.org/coronavirus. Until our next West Hollywood COVID-19 webinar series. See you next time.